Good morning. I think we should start. There were a lot of people who registered, but I'm not sure. I'll try to watch as participants join this morning. Just Governance Group is happy to host this roundtable discussion. We've been, conducting work around human rights defenders and inclusive governance, democratic development, and issues of digital rights, cybersecurity, freedom of expression have come into play in a lot of the work we do, whether in conflict affected or authoritarian context or other context. So we reached out to Access Now, an organization that focuses on these issues, to be able to organize this roundtable. And we see these roundtables as an opportunity for people to learn and also share their own experiences. You can pose questions later in the discussion, either verbally or in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat. You can raise your hand if you want to pose a question directly. You can also write just directly to me if you want. You'll see that I'm Just Governance Group. My name is Kimberly Inksader. I'm the executive director, one of the founders of our network of consultants. Although we're meeting virtually, I'd like to acknowledge that Just Governance Group, our office, is on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Indigenous Nation. The territory here, not only in Ottawa, but where in Canada generally, there's a complex and culturally specific laws and governance systems and justice systems operating. So we wanted to acknowledge that and grateful for operating on this Indigenous territory. We do have people attending from Asia, Europe, Latin America. So welcome to people. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, you're welcome to do so. I wanted to introduce the speakers before I hand really the floor over to them. First, Laura O'Brien, she'll be the first speaker. She's a senior UN advocacy officer at Access Now. She advances international law and norms around digital rights, particularly at the United Nations. She focuses on a range of issues from internet shutdowns, connectivity, cyber and digital security, privacy, shrinking civic space, and freedom of peaceful assembly and association in the digital age. While she holds various degrees, I first met Laura when she was studying law at the Faculty of Law at the University of Ottawa, and she was an intern at JGG. Well, that was several years ago. Our next speaker is Wei Phyo Minh. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Wei Phyo is the Asia Pacific policy analyst at Access Now, and she's been working as a digital rights advocate with regard to Myanmar for over 6 years. And she has experience in political advocacy, media, and communications. She's a former journalist, and she helped organize the Myanmar Digital Rights Forum since its inception in 2016. So welcome to both of you. Very happy that you're both able to attend and share your experience with us. We're going to start. The format will be that Laura will do a brief presentation, and then you can ask questions, have immediate reactions briefly to her presentation, and then we'll move to Wei Phil, who will do more of a case study around Myanmar. And the same thing after her presentation. People are welcome to ask immediate follow-up questions, and then we'll open up to a broader discussion around some of the key questions that we included in the invitation. Just a reminder what those questions are. Has the internet changed how you understand human rights or your human rights? What is the relationship between digital rights and other rights and pressing issues that you find in your work or in the country where you're either living or working? And how can the tech sector be an ally in digital rights protection? So maybe you can keep some of those questions in mind as we proceed. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Laura. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you to Just Governance Group for inviting us to this discussion today. I'm very grateful to be here and looking forward to what will unfold on Myanmar, but also digital rights generally. So I'm going to try and share my screen now. And even though we've been doing this for quite a while with the pandemic, do bear with me. I haven't done this quite frequently. Okay, for some reason I have to change my settings. So I might ask him if it's possible. I know you have my slides. If you could share them on your end, perhaps that might help, and share your screen.
Okay, let me look for that. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Jessica, in the chat for noting that. Yeah,
yeah,
could be co-host. Yeah,
I'd already made you co-host, so I'm not sure what
it's
happened.
my security settings.
Okay, here I'm going to share.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So hopefully everyone can see that. Thank you, Kim, for doing that.
No problem. Just let me know as you want to me to move ahead.
Sure. And we could also probably put them into the presentation form. I think that might be helpful.
Okay,
If not,
it's fine. No, it's okay. I've got a lot of screens open. So I'm trying to figure out how to.
Well, while Kim's figuring that out, I do know that we have an hour and a bit, so we might as well get started. I just wanted to start with an introduction of Access Now. So today we're talking about defending and extending human rights in the digital age, and that is exactly what our mission is at Access Now. So we're a civil society organization based globally throughout the world, and we support our mission through various means and advocacy efforts, including running a digital security helpline that provides 24/7 direct technical and security support to human rights defenders, activists, and journalists, and operating in, I believe, around 9 languages around the world. We also do comprehensive policy engagement and global advocacy, as well as legal interventions, both regionally and globally. And some of you may know us because we run RightsCon, which is one of the largest summits on human rights in the digital age. And next year, our RightsCon Summit series will be, oh, there are the slides. Perfect. Thank you, Kim. Our RightsCon Summit series will be taking place in Costa Rica in June, but it will also have a hybrid function. So I definitely encourage you all to check out RightsCon, especially if this is an area that you are interested in for today. So going to the next slide. So we're here to talk about digital rights. And of course, there's the common rights that come to mind are freedom of opinion and expression, which is found in Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. We think of the right to privacy, of course, in Article 17 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and freedom of association, which is in Article 22, and of peaceful assembly in Article 21. But we're really hoping today to illuminate that this is beyond what we typically understand to be digital rights. As the Vienna Declaration rightfully notes, all human rights are interdependent and interrelated. And so today we're going to highlight some pressing issues and some areas that we're focusing on through our advocacy at Access Now to really showcase how this very much intersects with other human rights that we might not immediately think of. So we've structured the presentation around our three main campaigns at Access Now, diving into, as I mentioned, the main issues and the challenges that we're facing in the digital age. We want to keep this an open discussion, so if at any moment you have reactions, as Kim mentioned, we'll go through some reactions, the burning questions, and then into a case study on Myanmar from Wayfio. So do, engage, pop questions in the chat. I'll happy to answer them. I can monitor the chat right now, so this is perfect. So going to the next slide. So the first issue and the topic we want to focus on is internet shutdowns. And an internet shutdown is an intentional disruption of internet or electronic communications, which render them inaccessible or effectively unusable for a specific population or within a location. And this is often used to exert control over the flow of information. And it is typically governments that order these internet shutdowns. And the type of shutdowns can include like a blanket internet shutdown where it just cuts access entirely, slowing access, which is also known as throttling, and blocking communication platforms like messaging apps. People also refer to shutdowns as blackouts, kill switches, or network disruptions. And governments attempt to justify these shutdowns by claiming that they are necessary in order to restore public order or for national security reasons or to prevent the spread of misinformation. They even use internet shutdowns to try and curb cheating on exams or for other technical reasons. And so governments typically order these shutdowns under circumstances that reveal that shutdowns are in fact aimed at quelling protests or gagging citizens during important national events like elections. And so rightfully, these internet shutdowns interfere with a range of human rights, not only the rights to freedom of an opinion and expression, but also access to information during crucial times like elections, to assemble and associate with others. But they also have a negative impact on the economy, on healthcare during the COVID-19 pandemic that we're still all in, on education, on many other aspects of our daily lives. And just for an example of this, internet shutdowns really cripple economies. So for instance, a 4-day shutdown in September in a country cost the economy an estimated US $388 million. So as a result of this, in 2016, Access Now, we launched the Keep It On campaign to help unite and organize the efforts of activists and organizations around the world to end internet shutdowns. And now this coalition represents around 243 organizations from 105 countries across the globe. And together we document and track these internet shutdowns. And last year we documented, and I put this statistic in the chart because it stands out so much, 139 shutdowns in 35 countries globally. India emerged as the highest offender with 66 shutdowns for the 4th year in a row. And there was a 50% increase in shutdowns globally outside of India, and 9 countries were added to this list. So that is the issue of internet shutdowns and what we do there. Moving to the next slide. Our next campaign focuses on digital identity. And while there's no standard accepted definition of digital identity, it generally refers to the online persona of an individual. It's understood to contain the components of identifying the individual and then authentication of the individuals. So when these functions are accomplished digitally, such identity may be considered having a digital identity. And there's various models of digital identity, such as a digital identity to establish for access to a particular service or for multiple services. And it serves as the main identity of the individual in the digital ecosystem. And we largely see these digital identity programs being implemented in refugee camps, and for example, as a precondition to receive aid. So it's not only thinking about the right to privacy and the issues that surround and trying to get a digital identity, but also access to food and essential services, especially for those in marginalized communities. And so there's a general assumption that these certain kinds of digital identity programs empower users, especially those in marginalized populations, by giving them legal identification and access to these public services. And digital identity programs can provide some of the same benefits to users as conventional identity, and can reap the benefits and scalability with the technology. However, what we're concerned about is that these programs also make the harms of that digital component also highly scalable. And it's far from being proven that most digital identity programs have brought additional benefits to users without placing them more at risk. And so in our campaign called WhyID, we outlined some of the current problems that we see with these digital identity programs. I provided the link there, but on our website, we have the letter. And one main concern I want to draw your attention to is biometric identifiers. These include fingerprints, iris scans, facial geometry. Those are increasingly being used as a means of enrolling individuals into these systems for authentication. And biometric data is vulnerable to hacking, just like other authentication methods. Unlike a password, though, biometric indicators like your fingerprints, facial recognition, you cannot reset those or change them as needed. So this poses a higher risk. It becomes increasingly difficult to repair the damage done by leaks or hacks of that specific biometric data, and thus restore the sanctity of those biometric-based systems. So in 2019, we launched this WhyID campaign to outline these issues, including biometric data, but also question, why do we need these digital identity systems? Why are such programs being deployed without sufficient evidence of the benefits? Why should it be mandatory for users to enroll in these programs to receive aid, to receive benefits? And we specifically call for a moratorium on the collection and use of biometrics until it can be proven that such authentication is completely safe, inclusive, and not liable to error. So that's highlighting the issue of digital identity. Moving on to the last campaign on surveillance and spyware. In January of this year, I think we're all familiar with the issue of surveillance and spyware, obviously being watched. The image here on the slide should really show kind of getting the depiction of what it's like to be surveilled. But in January of this year, we launched a report with Frontline Defenders called Unsafe Anywhere, and it was on women human rights defenders speak out about Pegasus, which is a spyware operated and owned by NSO Group. And this report unpacks the firsthand experiences of these women human rights defenders in Bahrain and Jordan. The first woman was a renowned human rights defender, and her iPhone was hacked at least 8 times between August and November 2019 with the Pegasus spyware. And she claims that her personal freedoms are over for me. They no longer exist. I am not safe at home, on the street, or anywhere. And the second woman was a human rights lawyer who worked with a number of human rights and feminist organizations to defend women's and workers' rights and freedom in Jordan. And her device was also infected with Pegasus spyware in March of 2021. And so for these women targets, digital surveillance is a ticking time bomb. They live in fear of how their personal information, including their private lives, their videos, their conversations, could be used against them at any given point, and opening the door to harassment and abuse. And this also has a chilling effect on, on surveillance, can lead to the social isolation of targets. So really, we're trying to showcase that digital rights have a lot, an added layer of gender dimensions and non-discrimination, and how the impact on these individuals based on their intersecting identities can really escalate some of the issues. So as part of our surveillance campaign, we call for a global and immediate moratorium on the use, sale, and transfer of surveillance technologies. And we also want to sanction surveillance technology providers like NSO Group for these. And turning to the last slide, this provides an overview of 3 main campaigns, main topics that we're working on at Access Now, in the hopes to, showcase some of the advocacy that we're working on, the challenges that we face, this discussion. So I'm happy to, hear your reactions, the burning questions, also being mindful that it would be great to hand it over to Wayfio to go specifically into the case study on Myanmar.
Does anyone have any follow-up questions for Laura or on the specific campaigns? Okay, Jess, we'll hold that on. Alusalena, do you have a question? You're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My question goes if all these digital rights also run into the area of Web 3.0. That's my only question.
Yes, thank you for that question. My colleagues, I'm unfortunately not as well versed on Web3, but my colleagues have definitely been looking into this. I don't know, Wayfio, do you have any discussions on that? No, yeah, but yeah, but that's definitely something that we're also looking into as well.
Could you explain what that is? I don't know. Web3.
Web3 is the new internet for the. It's starting to build, and but it's a new platform for blockchain to function, and it's commonly used now for blockchain enablers.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Lucelena. If there aren't other questions, I mean, we'll get into a broader discussion around solutions, or I guess some of the experiences in trying to find solutions, perhaps after Wayfio's presentation then. Okay. Wayfio, are you able to share, hopefully, your presentation? I didn't download your presentation.
Let me open, yeah, and then it should be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Let me know if you need help.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting us, especially like can you hear me well as well? Hello?
Yes, all
Okay.
all is well. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean that I'm originally from Myanmar, so currently because of these like security reasons, so I've been like moved outside of the country. So currently, right now, I'm based in Thailand. So thank you for inviting us, especially like right now. Also I'm really grateful to have a chance to talk about like these like very oppressive issues the people in Myanmar has been facing, like all these also coming from with the use of the technology and etc. as well. So yet the Laura has been presenting about all these fundamental issues. Literally when we look at about Myanmar, definitely all the issues currently we are facing, in parallel. So let me go through some of these major challenges in Myanmar, currently Myanmar is experiencing. So many of you might aware the military conducted the coup, last year, 2021 February. So this was the latest coup, Is this not, of course, not the first time for Myanmar, but at this time, we are experiencing, in a digital age, this is kind of a first time, for all of us. We are quite familiar with all these types of operations, military usually kind of conduct, but at this time, what we have been seeing about it is not just kind of a normal, coup, it's also we are seeing about it like a digital coup as well. We have been seeing about military has been using digital technology to strengthen their rule, to spread their propaganda, and also they also using all sort of a digital technology to be able to monitor, to be able to strengthen their surveillance mechanisms in monitoring, all the activities against the military coup. That's what we have been seeing on the ground. So that's why since the day one, we have been saying about the coup, people in Myanmar has been experiencing is not just a kind of an ordinary coup, we have experienced before. This is also a digital coup, digital dictatorship, we have to deal currently right now. So when we look at about the one Laura's already present about, kind of internet shutdowns, internet censorship, and etc. So this is the kind of the first thing we experienced on the day one of the military coup, as soon as they announced even before we heard about all these news of the military coup coming out, the first thing was they shut down, all the internet access, including even the public a television channel, public radios, and etc. So only kind of a military controls medias remain, but the rest, everything's all the communications, phone lines, internet connections got shut it down on even on the first day of the February. So that has been basically kind of right now a state. Internet was resumed, later on that day, but time to time we had been seeing about different types of shutdowns, different types of internet censorships we have been experiencing. These days, I would say about in terms of numbers and also in terms of situation, is quite getting worse day by day as well. And then the other one is currently right now, pretty much the whole market is this of the mobile and telecommunication sector is controlled by the companies, either linked or ownerships linked to the military or managed by the military. So that was also quite a serious situation when we talk about this internet shutdown issue, when we talk about right to internet access, freedom of expression, and also even the privacy and etc. And then the third point I would like to talk about it is a digital safety, and then this increasing abuse of the surveillance technology. Laura of touch on assess now position about this surveillance technology and etc. Especially right now, military has been abusing surveillance technology, and also they are abusing a dual use technology as well. So that is also quite a serious situation we are facing. And then the other thing is doxing campaign, a rise of the military propagandas, online propaganda. Military has been, is this not just the pro-democratic activists, all of us experience in a Middle East and etc. So we, activists, use the digital technology and also the mobilized stuff and etc. But right now, at the same time, a military, all these dictators are also using, all these digital tools as well at the same time, and then they are basically kind of strengthening their rules, strengthening their system, and also making sure about like their surveillance mechanism has been working, and etc. So we have been seeing about like a serious impacts of doxings, you know, like a rise of these military propagandas on the different different like a social media platforms like a YouTube, you know, Telegram, like even some part like a Facebook, and you know, etc. as well. So that is also a kind of like another like a major issues, rights related issues in Myanmar has been facing. So these are kind of like the data just to give you like some idea how serious it is, you know. For example, like internet shutdown, we have all types of internet shutdown experience in the last, I would say about like now a little bit over 1 year time, right? So blanket internet shutdown, that's mean all the internet, the whole country has been shut down, and also domain like IB based shut down. We also have event based internet shutdown as well. Like for example, there were like some of these like a protest group call for like a nationwide, you know, like a different like a sort of like a protest activities and etc. And on that day you start hearing about like a event based, you know, internet shutdown on the whole country and etc. So and then right now like the other like a serious problem is like regional internet shutdowns, you know. It is going on now, impacting like 54 townships throughout the country currently. And then basically they be switching off the internet, you know, all these like conflict areas right now, like the military and also the armed groups, you know, like, and also some are civilians group, you know, fighting against the military. Those kind of like all these different regions. So you will see in the map, you know, like at Chin State, like all red and you know, etc. northern part, and then like a second one is a kind of yellow and reddish and etc. That is also a conflict area, you know. All these like shutdown has been on and off going on, and then different like a kind of like different townships, you know, throughout the country. So that was the right now like we stayed kind of like as facing challenges, you know, to be able to document even the exact number, exact kind of like impacts of the internet shutdowns happening throughout the country. And then the other thing is like a website bans. So thousands of websites has been banned. So including like a Facebook, Twitter, you know, YouTube has also already banned in Myanmar. People can access like a Facebook and all these other platforms only through the BBN. Without the BBN, they cannot access to these websites. And also like including like a media organization, like for example, New York Times and etc. They also already been blocked inside the country. And then there are like other type of restrictions, you know. I mean, like for example, SIM card registration, you know, like they even increase up like the price of the SIM card, like they also even like increase the taxation, you know, on these like a mobile data price, and you know, like offshore, and even like they now start collecting about like an activation fee, you know. If you buy a new SIM card, and then you still have to pay the SIM card fees plus like activation fees and you know, etc. So which is like the purpose is like making, you know, people inaccessible to the internet, you know. So right now the issues is definitely the internet access in Myanmar is a serious issue. And then like electricity is also now kind of like only 2 to 3 sometimes like some are up to like 5 hours per day. Even in the major cities they can get it. So military electricity outage is also another issue, you know, impacting on the people access to the internet. And then it is actually getting rose these days as well. And then the other one is like a military link ownership. So right now, like we have like 4 operators, like a mobile telecom operators. So just last week, Ooredoo was the only, like the last one. The Ooredoo is the kind of was the remaining, you know, the foreign owned operator. But just last week they sold to a company reportedly linked to the military. So right now, pretty much like all the operators, like 100% of the market has been basically controlled by the military link and military owned companies, you know. MPT, Minter, the first 2 are already being kind of like the operators, which is like already owned by the military, and then under the like a fully control of the military and etc. And then like a Telenor, the Norwegian telecom company, also already sold it like earlier this year to a company which is linked to the military. And then Ooredoo is now just very recent, just last week they sold it out to companies which has already been found a link to the military. So right now, in terms of like operations, when we look at about like a mobile, like a telecommunication sector in Myanmar, so all the companies are not necessarily, we don't really have like any companies which are responsible, we could call, and also transparent, you know, like in terms of like a data protections, privacy, and etc. So those are the huge concern, huge threat for the safety, digital safety of all the users in Myanmar currently. And then the other one is digital safety and like abuse of the surveillance technology and etc. So you will see about like Telenor also already mentioned about, you know, they decided to leave the country because like they were forced to install, you know, intercept technology in their network. So right now, like all the networks in Myanmar has been basically ordered by the military to install and switch on, you know, like intercept technology in the networks, and also data request orders. You know, we've been like hearing about all these like operator has been complying the military data requests, especially like requests around these data like communications data, you know, who have their linked, who owned this same number, and you know, etc. And then recently they are also planning to do this like a IMEI registration regulation as well. So that is like basically they are also like IMEI is your handset, you know, like a phone handset registration number. So military is also plan to ask people to register that IMEI number, so that basically they can easily see, you know, who has the ownership of this handset, and you know, like a SIM card and etc. And also at the same time where that phone and that person is located, you know, so they can easily trace, you know. So that was like a more about kind of like to make sure about, you know, all their surveillance like monitoring activities more efficient. And then like we see like a number of reports about like the installation of the expansions of like a CCTV installations in all the major cities with the this facial recognition technology and etc. So that is also like this is a growing concern, you know, people in Myanmar are facing. And then the other is like a kind of like they are also preparing like a more of like a legal reform process to make sure about all these like activities, all these like different types of operations they have been doing are kind of like in line with their law, you know. So even like this cybersecurity law they are drafting, there was like a provision which even restrict, which can criminalize use, you know, for the use of the VPNs as well, because right now the only without VPNs people cannot access to the Facebook and then many other websites. So that's why right now they are also trying to restrict, you know, the use of the VPNs. And then technologically we've been hearing like a quite recent as well. So there are like installing some kind of like a system to make sure about, you know, they can basically trace, you know, all these like a website link, and also like which VPNs is coming from and etc. So even right now they are also trying to block VPN as well. So those are like a Telegram doxing. So like I think you might heard about like the issues around Facebook was like being closely kind of, I would say about compared to the other markets, Facebook a local team has been quite engaging with the community, like a civil society groups in Myanmar. So like I think even before the coup, you know, they set up a policy removing, you know, like a military military related accounts. And also like at the military, the personal accounts like a link to this like a military leadership, and also right now like a military control and military link like a businesses, their pages, Facebook pages and etc. So they be removing, you know, constantly as well. So they kind of like a Facebook adopted that policy, you know, banning all these military link like accounts and then media and you know etc. The thing is like these guys, you know, after they got kicked out, you know, from the Facebook, they moved to the Telegram, and then they start doing about it like a doxing, running doxing campaigns as well. So a study from the earlier this year what we have been seeing about it, like they share this kind of like a screenshot, you know, of any individual, not necessarily need to be a high profile politician or not necessarily need to be a celebrities, even like any ordinary citizen, you know, an ordinary person, you know, who has been contributing to this like a revolution activities and etc. So they can basically their activities, like whatever they mention on their Facebook post or even their comment, you know, they put it on these like news pages and etc. These are kind of like taken, the screenshots are taken and then spread it on their these like pro-military lobbyists and Telegram groups. And then like I mentioned about, okay, this is the identity of this account is this, and then here is their that person location, and then here is that person address and the business address, and you know, etc. And then a few hours later, we start seeing about police literally take this information and then arrest these people, you know. So, and also like, of course, you know, there are some of like coordinated manners and patterns, you know, we have seen, you know, these kinds like has linked to the militaries and military personnel and also others like police institutions and etc. But like this dark scene has been impacting a lot of people, and then ended up, you know, being got killed. Some are got killed, some are got arrested, and then some of these like house and properties got burned down and etc. and also confiscated by the military as well. So that was we are seeing about not just one or two or kind of is it on a daily basis, you know, like we have been seeing about like a number of people on a daily basis got arrested, and then like their business got confiscated and you know, etc. So this dark scene, Telegram dark scene, has been quite a serious impact on the ground, but we still haven't got like any kind of, you know, any response or, you know, like any kind of like engagement from the Telegram platform. So that is also what we have been keep working on as well. So I think like those are, I think of course, you know, there are tons of issues like impeding on our civil space, you know, like our online freedom space, you know, etc. But these are the current like major issues. We definitely need like different like support, you know, from all these like a different organization and also like a different government, etc. to be able to address, because this has been kind of like a serious impact, you know, on the ground, ended up, you know, many like and the lives of like many people, you know, on a daily basis as well. So that is basically I would like to highlight, and then I would like to stop my presentation right now. And yes, I will be happy to answer or any like listens to your comments as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Wei Fio. That was very interesting. Very obviously also very disturbing, what is happening in Myanmar itself. You ended by mentioning Telegram and also Facebook. And so Facebook has, you know, adopted a policy and is, you know, closing or shutting down pages or removing pages. You haven't had the same response to Telegram. And that sort of leads to one of the questions we had, how the tech sector can be allies. As an, you know, the companies like the Norwegian company in Myanmar sold because of the requirements that were being imposed. But then that leaves the space completely controlled by the military. So I don't know if you have any other comments on that, or if the people who stayed, sorry, I think we lost someone who I thought I had admitted to the meeting. But if anyone has any questions or comments around, you know, how we can engage tech companies in this work, or any specific questions for Wei Fio, sorry.
Yeah, before the question, maybe okay, go ahead, please go ahead. Yes.
Sorry,
Jess,
my
maybe-
camera is not working.
That's okay, Jess, and then Lucelena. First, Jess.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, just thinking about your question about how to engage the corporations. I feel that they are already engaged. I don't know if the question is a little bit different. But the kind of things that they can help with is the policy and the regulatory system, right? More than the product development side of it. And that's the aspect that I am more aware of in terms of using corporate sector actors for the wider good and to reduce some of these digital security space. So, for example, one of the things that the William and Florida, well, the Hewlett Packard Foundation was working on was precisely this, on building the cybersecurity field space and trying to bring to the US policies and regulatory systems that we now have in Europe that provide more security for individuals, communities, but also more agency about which data is stored in which ways and used on their behalf. So I feel like we already have policy and regulatory systems in some places around the world that can be scaled up and expanded, like America and everywhere else. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm answering the question or kind of proposing a very different frame of thinking about it, but I do think that there is a space for government and corporations to come together. And if you think about it, the big IT corporations, some of which I worked at, are already working with governments on this, on these aspects. So how can we get better, for example, us working on the front lines and in non-for-profit sectors to maybe support that relationship in ways that result in the outcomes that we're seeking for the people that we're serving on the ground, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's helpful. There's obviously companies involved in discussions around regulations and the use of data, but then there are companies or, spyware like Pegasus as well that are directly involved in violation of human rights. So, I mean, is there perhaps not only government to government, but that the UN level, I don't know, Laura may want to look at that a bit more.
I guess the accountability piece is crucial for everyone, right? Not just holding governments accountable, but holding corporations accountable. And again, I do think that we have a role to play since we are closest to the impact it has on the ground. So yeah, to which extent we have those avenues to have those conversations and hold people accountable if that's a role that we can play.
And I'll just jump in here to say, I like how this discussion is going into governments and corporations, because at the UN and the multilateral level, we do see a lot of governments working with corporations, and these private companies are actually gaining access to the UN and are involved in these discussions as well. So framing it around accountability, as Jessica noted, I think is really, really essential. And in terms of, I could list off a bunch of initiatives that are unfolding at the UN and elsewhere on digital rights. But I think one thing to center on is that it does seem there seems to be a lot of political will to address internet shutdowns right now at the international level. A lot of governments, including Canada, my own, very, very, very much interested in internet shutdowns. I think we do need more rallying around the other issues such as biometric data and surveillance and others as well. But there are initiatives being done, and we are seeing this engagement from governments, corporations. And I think Jessica's point about how we, as working on the front lines, working with these grassroots organizations and others at risk, how we can scale that up to the multilateral level is something we at Access Now have been prioritizing to bring these, and that's through these campaigns that I just mentioned, to really bring those coalitions of organizations around the world to elevate these issues at the international level with governments and with the private sector.
Thank you, Laura and Jess. Luz Helena, you had your hand up. Did you want to pose a question?
Yeah. My question was regarding VPN. How do they do it? I mean, they have to inspect the devices in order to know that you have a VPN installed in your cell phone or your computer, and then a comment. That's a question, no? How do they check that you have a VPN installed? And the second is the comment that people will always find ways to communicate. And nowadays, fortunately, we have really many means. I mean, but you have to be a technological, a person who knows about these technologies, and that's not very common. Like, for example, you can use Wickr as a messaging device, as a messaging program, which is the safest in the world. But not many people get to know what Wickr is. Or you can use browsers like Tor or DuckDuckGo and many other ones that are not traceable. I mean, the sites you visit and so on, that you can use. And also, people, I mean, young people, especially who are in the metaverse and playing games and all that, they will find a way to communicate through their characters in those games in the metaverse or virtual reality. So they cannot stop real communication, but people have to know about these technologies available, and that's not very common, but they exist and they can be used. So it's kind of a matter of educating people on the tools that they can use to spread out communication. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Luz Helena. Did someone want to respond to the VPN question?
Yes. So yes, definitely. And then yeah, of course, BBNs, they technically check, especially right now, the police, even the law has been adopted yet. It's mentioned in the draft law. But thing is a police, they kind of stopping you on the streets and then checking your phone, asking you to open your phone and etc. If they find it a BBN apps, installed on your phone, and then basically you can easily get arrested. So definitely, I think this was more about kind of creating kind of a fear sector, right? Especially even if you go out, these days people inside the country, they first have to clean, or they are a digital footprints on their phone, and also and install a BBN, and also if it is a Facebook has a rider network, they also have to install their Facebook as well, because they might look at about what you post on Facebook, what you share on the Facebook, and etc. So that was basically kind of, is this sort of a setting up, these are, not necessarily news, I would say it about, but it's involved with the technology. So that's why I would say it about the news. But those are basically part of the playbook of, kind of a military dictatorship. They trying to kind of set up these kinds of systems so that that put you in constant fear, because you are all the time fearing about before you go out, and even if you see the police, if you see the military on the street and etc., you are kind of so they are making you kind of a switch on, a constant, a fear move. And at the same time, they are making this putting out this law basically they can arrest you for any whatever reason, I mean, if they want to arrest you, they could find, oh, you got arrested for using BBN, you can get arrested for using Facebook, you can get arrested for commenting on these the media, and etc. So basically they are making it trying to find a legal base, to arrest you anytime they want, any moment they want, any person they want, so that was basically that's why they kind of using coming out, this thing, etc. So yeah, the other part about this technology, so currently what they are, I'm not a technological person, but what they are trying to do is they are also looking about a China, model, they are trying to build up a kind of, firewall system, and then trying to have it a kind of just only internet, So right now, recently they already announced, right? They are going to ban Facebook, they are going to ban YouTube, and then they will replace them with their local developed app, they call for the YouTube, they even call it MQ, so they are going to replacing, this YouTube and then Facebook and etc. with the local I mean controlled by them, local app lookup platform and etc. So this exactly look like a kind of, the model of the Chinese government. But of course, in terms of scale, in terms of like capacity and etc., this is still a huge question. But like what they are looking about it is that the way, the Chinese government has trying to control the people access to in the internet. So that was, I think, they are currently looking at. So yeah, definitely I agree, Luis, because we definitely need to find like all these different, like a kind of, first is like a mitigation, plan, because there are tons of risks right now, even if you own a phone, you can easily get arrested. You can be kind of like a charged with the criminal offenses, like right now. So that's why like there are tons of risks. So first thing is we definitely need to have a think a lot like around these like mitigation plans, how we are going to mitigate, how we are going to educate public, to mitigate themselves, kind of like being exposed to all these risks, why they are still keeping it like at their work, why they are still keeping it their space, and etc. But and also like all these like a different like tech tips, like how to keep, like communications and etc. as well. That is also a kind of like another part, another stream of work. We have been collaborating with the civil society groups, to be able to spread it out, like to make themselves safe, like to make sure about their communications is safe, and then to stay keep connected, while the military has been trying to shut down all sort of internet. So yeah, that was, I think, maybe later I could touch on this Telenor issue, and then like sanction, like the thinking, like the challenges we are facing about to be able to sanction or to be able to put like any pressure on these like corporate guys to be more responsible in kind of like dealing the situations like Myanmar. Yeah.
Thank you, Weifio. Zubin has had his hand up. Did you want to ask a question?
Hello. Yeah, thank you. It's very interesting PowerPoint presentation. So before I have a few questions, but before I ask a few questions, I would like to engage with the discussion that Luz Helena mentioned. Like according to my experience, like even though young people nowadays young people are very smart, yeah, they can find a way to overcome the challenges, like creating different platform. But what I see, the real challenges is like infrastructural problem. For example, like the military can control the physical infrastructure, for example, shut down the internet connection, and as well as like electricity shut down. But I don't see like if we don't have any infrastructure like electricity and internet, I don't know how or no matter young people are smart or creative, I don't see how to overcome these like the real physical infrastructure challenges, like to create a new platform. So this is like that I see the challenges to overcome. And then according to my experience, like when we go out in the town, so we usually bring our smartphone, but usually one place of security force see, we bring smartphone, they check our smartphone, like any application, or as well as like the photo gallery and email, any application they scrutinize. And that's because of that risk, sometimes we usually bring keypad, no? So that we don't have any application in the keypad phone. But even though we bring keypad phone, one police says, they said, we don't believe you are using keypad. You definitely use smartphone, but you bring like intentionally keypad. And then they can arrest you without any further question because of even you are using keypad phone, because of you are not using smartphone. Right? They have now like trying to threaten the people. Like I think they're imposing fear for the people who never who really like impose fear to scare people not to use any more about this social platform freely. And then this is the real challenges that Myanmar people are facing now. So I have a few questions to with you. So you also mentioned like doxing and internet civilian. So I wonder, do you have any information like the military also trying to civilian for people, Myanmar people who stay in foreign countries, like through their embassy, like after the doxing or revealing their personal profile, and then when they need to go to embassies, like they are trying to threaten those citizens who came to embassy for their visa extension or passport renewal or through the embassy to people who stay in foreign country. Do you have any information like the similar case for that? And then you also mentioned like military junta recently said they were create a platform for Facebook to replace Facebook and YouTube. So to what extent this is like the possibility to implement like the totally shut down Facebook and YouTube and to replace this new platform? So because I'm not from technical background, I would like to know to what extent is this possibility? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Sugam.
for those questions, Wei-Fio.
Yes, yes. So yeah, first, I think like let me talk on the keypad as well. So keypad is right now in Myanmar, especially in Myanmar is known as a country of the smartphone. So people like basically we are kind of like a latecomer. So but the thing is right now we also even suggest like not to use keypad phone anymore, because like even like if the police find you using the keypad, you can easily get arrested, because this is kind of like a link to these like some of like kind of like a setting up these like explosive devices and etc., because this is linked to these like a keypad phone. So that's why like on our digital security protocols, we even suggest people not to use keypads anymore, keypad phone anymore. So sorry, that was kind of And then the other one, I think like a surveillance on the people like a kind of who got relocated outside the country and etc. Do we lost him? Oh no. Okay, so the one like right now, I mean, to be honest, we don't really have like exact information, but one thing is like for example, like for currently, like especially in Thailand, like both Chiang Mai and then Bangkok office. So if you are renewing your passport, so like they have like a thorough interview process, and also they even send like the whole kind of like a data back to the I mean to the check. They basically they would like to check with their database and etc. So definitely there are sensor of like a database system already at the exit, and then they are basically monitor, I mean kind of like a checking in their data with their database. So that was the issue. But the other thing is that is also quite recent as well. So that is also like, I mean, we are also trying to better understand about like there kind of like intelligence information exchange between these like Thai military or Thai government and the Burmese Myanmar military. So that is also our major concern during because of the recent crackdown, recent incident, especially experience involving in this Chiang Mai University, and then like the university set up by these like Burmese pro-activist groups and etc. So that was like right now. There are like we are also requesting anybody like looking at about especially these like Thai, because right now you might also aware about like Thai government is Thai military. There are like so many the use of the Pegasus softwares, especially like in Thailand, and then that installations were linked to the Thai military as well. So I think like they are already have several reports about like involving this like citizen lab and etc. So these are basically what we understand about it. Like a Thai government / Thai military has been putting out like a Pegasus or wells on the some of these like Thai activists and etc. So that's why right now the current like a growing concern we have is we have a growing like activist community will getting relocated to Thailand. So that's why right now the concern is whether Thai military also might use similar technology in monitoring us and then exchanging that information with the Myanmar government. Of course, currently we don't have any evidence to yet, but we are also actively looking at it, like trying to monitor and also trying to work with the different organizations as well to be able to understand better on that situation. So that is the one. And then the like a replacement with the like a YouTube and Facebook with these like a local kind of like a products and etc. I think technologically of course about like their like a capability and etc. But I think is this possible, right? Like to be able to develop like an app to, you know, all these different platforms and etc. I mean, the only question is, you know, like whether people will use them, because, you know, all these platforms, you know, and unless, you know, if people are not using it, you know, they are basically, I would say about like this, because these are like, for example, Facebook, like a replacement, you know, like this is the social media platform, right? Like they are looking about it, like, but if people are not using it, you know, like what is the existence, right? So the questions around is, one is like whether people will use this or not, and then how can, you know, these kinds of like a military app, you know, platforms can be popular among the people, you know, in Myanmar. So that is the one question, and then we are quite like a kind of, you know, split. But the other thing is but at the same time, we also need to we should not be a kind of like take this issue lightly, you know, because like the way they are setting up, the way they are kind of like implementing this is like they have like others like a very serious agendas as well, you know. So basically right now they said they are going to ban Facebook. So that's me, if they find out about it, somebody inside the country stay using the Facebook, you know, they can easily get arrested because they already banned, right? So the other thing is also like about this, like kind of like the messages, right? Like, and also the database as well, you know, like if this platform is controlled by the military, then they will get all these like the data, you know, like what is happening, you know, stored on these platforms and etc. So that's why we need to basically make like people understand about the risks of, you know, associated to these platforms, so that like people can avoid them, you know. So this is, I think, like a kind of, you know, put on our plate, you know. We need to work more with the writers, civil society groups network, to make sure about people at least understand about the risks, you know. We are not necessarily against, you know, having like the more options, you know, for the people, communication channels, right? But we also definitely need to, it is our responsibility to make sure about people aware about the risks, you know, associated to these platforms linked to the military, which kinds of risks they will be facing, and then why they should be kind of like avoiding and etc. So this is, I think, like we need to work on. But definitely, I think technologically, I don't really that is a kind of like a major challenge. If they want to develop, they can easily download it. Yes.
I wanted to try to bring some things together, and Jessica put a comment in the chat or a question about how do we scale up? How do we react, I guess, to get jointly, collaboratively, I think more promptly to risks, more systematically. And, you know, there's obviously a link between so many types of rights, which, you know, I know Laura and I spoke about before. There's people's civil and political rights. Their lives are at risk because of the invasion of privacy and all of these risks in this authoritarian, if we use, you know, Myanmar as an extreme with authoritarianism, but the risks that are coming out in countries all over where we're working. And I guess what I'm not seeing, even from UN agencies, is this you know, a more integral and intersectional analysis of these digital rights risks, when not only they're looking at human rights defenders' risks, but other risks or other rights across the board. So I think the UN and other multilateral organizations can do a lot more to bring the digital rights issues to the forefront. I don't know if Laura wants to sort of expand on what I've said and Jess's comment in the chat.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think it's an important part of this discussion and really kind of broadens it out, but also wrapping all of this together. And I do think, you know, it's not one NGO that can do all this. It is coalition efforts That's part of the campaigns. It's a matter of working across the globe, getting the perspectives of everyone that we possibly can. You know, no one person, no one entity can fully wrap the issues, especially when we consider intersectionality and the different, you know, perspectives and means that this all impacts users, persons, individuals all differently. So I just really want to hone in on the fact that it is not just one, it is all of us working together. On Kim's point on the UN and what the UN could be doing, part of that is, you know, really elevating and looking at the intersection of civil and political rights, but also economic, social, and cultural rights, which we are trying to highlight in this presentation today. And one example that I can give that we have seen at the UN, so internet shutdowns has largely been seen through the lens of civil and political rights. And I think rightfully so. But recently, the former High Commissioner on Human Rights released a report that was specifically addressed to look at also economic, social, and cultural rights and link it to the Sustainable Development Goals as well. And so we're seeing a bit of a traction and an expansion into understanding the need to look at this. And I think a lot of this is largely due to the pandemic. A lot of us witnessed how, you know, our trying to connect virtually if we had access to the internet. Many in different parts of the world had internet shutdowns or were, you know, digital literacy or other challenges for connectivity. But those of us who were living our lives online, and that included our education, you know, our children going to school on their computers. You know, we were accessing health information and everything that we could possibly on the internet. So I think the pandemic has really heightened this understanding of looking beyond, you know, what we're the civil and political rights and looking into economic, social, and cultural rights. And I can only see that expanding into the future. I think, you know, we're not only dealing with, you know, digital rights, but we're in this context of rising authoritarianism as highlighted today, but also climate change. And I think, you know, Lewis mentioned previously on Web3, you know, blockchain, Bitcoin, all of those different aspects, you know, how do those have an impact on the mining industry and so forth, but also, you know, looking at documenting the impacts of climate change on our lives, I think is another important component. And we're also, you know, systemic racism. We're still trying to challenge, you know, different aspects that we've witnessed. So I think when we think of digital, it's not just situated in this tiny little box of digital rights. It's very much connected to this outside world. So for us working together to elevate that at the UN at multilateral level is really of fundamental importance.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laura. Jess, did you have another question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Kim. Just building on what Laura said, I think there is something about the incentives and when it's changing in the funding and infrastructure space to really incentivize collaboration and systemic change. So I still think that the funding space incentivizes competition over collaboration. But it could be the other way around, right? I think funders of all kinds have a big role in bringing together the field to create, you know, that systemic change that we're talking about, right? Where we know that no one NGO will solve this, where we know that we need infrastructure and dedicated resources to bring people together to share insights, to build a knowledge base, to address evidence gaps, and someone that maybe like the UN is already doing, trying to kind of put together a field strategy or agenda based on which actors can work around and towards a particular type of change. But as I say, for me, it's just kind of honing a little bit more on the role of funding and something very specific as a solution for more collaborative systemic change.
Thank you for that comment. I think some of that where you have donor agencies supporting different projects, and if they're not seeing these digital rights as affecting all other rights, and bringing that to the forefront, I think that's important. And where I'm thinking of some work I'm doing in Honduras, where there's, horrible violence against certain groups, women, LGBTI, human rights defenders, environmental human rights defenders, etc. So that is sort of a civil political angle to it. But if we're focusing on the results and not looking at some of the means that the armed groups or the perpetrators of these violent crimes are using as well. So it's, I think, looking at things a bit more broadly and in that intersectional manner would be very, very important. In a lot of context, Myanmar being at the forefront, I think, of that. Does anyone have any other closing thoughts, Wei, Phil, or Laura, or any comments before we wrap up the roundtable?
I just want to be a little bit touching on the because the Telenor issue, like, for example, like a Telenor, like mentioned, right? They are leaving because they were forced to install this intersect technology and etc. But the thing is, they are not just simply leaving the country. They handed over the whole kind of like a communications data of the 18 million users they have in Myanmar. So right now, we still cannot really imagine, cannot see how kind of which kinds of impacts, we will see, before having, these data handed over to a company which has strong link to the military, which will never say no to the military. So this is basically serious impact. And then we have been seeing about more of growing number of arrests through these communications, phone data and etc. And also we've been seeing about military has been using about these kinds of communications data in their interrogations process as well, to added additional charges and then to be able to arrest more and etc. as well. So those are kind of we start seeing about these impacts, we cannot specifically say, oh, this is linked to the Telenor, but Telenor has 18 million users, and then just leaving the country and then without deleting these data definitely is a very irresponsible. But and also they are based in a Norwegian company, they have a kind of GDPR laws, applying to them and etc. Even the European setup this GDPR and etc. Sometimes especially their home countries laws cannot really prevent these countries are doing and they are practiced in other countries, etc. So there was a kind of we have been seen about it's a huge a learning opportunity. Definitely I think this is also we are going to stress and then make sure about the corporate sector are aware about this issue. And then the other one is around this a sanction, so there are a number of challenges we are facing, a two-part sanction. One is the kind of around trade bans on these surveillance technologies and dual use and etc. So recently we start seeing about even a report these Israeli sell these different sort of technologies to the companies which can ended up a link to the military and etc. So these are we still cannot really stop these kinds of tricks as well. And then the other thing is especially these the companies who bought Telenor and then who bought Ooredoo and etc. There are tons of evidence which that's linked to the military, which has been benefiting to the military, but like to be able to put them on the US or EU sanction and etc. is that we are still kind of like facing a major challenge. So there will be we definitely needed like a lot of like pressure, international pressure around this issue, and also people and also international government also need to understand, need to aware about, you know, like which kinds of impact, you know, these kinds of like failing to do so can have ended up, you know, resulted in the countries like Myanmar. So this is, I think, yeah, we still need to push more in this area as well. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Weifio. Lucilena, do you have a quick question? Because then I'm going to pass it to Laura to wrap up.
It's just a comment that we really need to invest from the UN and the organizations and on women, because women are the least to have access to technology and knowledge about what to do when these situations so difficult situations that like Myanmar and Venezuela also went through. So we need to get women into the field of technology, not just to know about programs and software, and also basic things about hardware and how to use technology to overcome certain imposed obstacles to communication. And the last one is that, since you mentioned tech companies, it's very important to put forward all the efforts to get internet not coming from local companies, because that's where the control, the possibility to control people's communication is, but also technology that provides internet to people through satellites. And that's something that is coming, but we need to speed it up. And so maybe the UN can get into that field and speed up a lot more that step. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucilena. It was very helpful. I think the gender perspective we always need. I was wondering that before, if Access Now had disaggregated data on the some of these issues, but we're at the end of of our time. Laura, did you have any final comments?
Yeah, just want to thank you all for this discussion. I think it's been really fruitful and really appreciated, and you inviting us to this, and particularly the focus on Myanmar, because yeah, the issues there are deeply concerning. And yeah, on the point on women, I guess looking forward, I should mention at the UN level, the next Commission on the Status of Women has a dedicated theme that is focused on technology and these issues discussing today. I think infrastructure, you know, getting more women online, digital literacy, I think it will feed nicely into that. So just to bear in mind, usually last year it was focused on climate change. This year it's focused on tech. So I think moving forward, that should gain a lot of attention and intersectional analysis. But just in conclusion, I think, you know, today we've really seen how digital rights are beyond what we originally think. They intersect quite with our daily lives. The internet has changed how we run our lives and how we operate, and therefore our human rights. And of course, you know, acknowledging the actors in this space, the tech sector, the governments, us as civil society, and others, what we need to do moving forward, and ensuring that we're defending and extending the digital rights of everyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you both to Laura and Weifio. It's been really a privilege to have this presentation and discussion. I found it a very fruitful discussion. We had like 22 people register and not that many attend, but hopefully more people will look at the recording at a later date. And if Access Now, if either of you, Laura, Weifio, have documents or links that you want me to share with the participants, I'm happy to do that. I think it was a very helpful discussion. I wanted to thank everyone. Jess had to leave, but others, Lucelena and Zuben, and who had questions and very insightful comments as well. So on behalf of Just Governance Group, thank you very much for attending today. And we'll look forward to future collaboration or discussion on these issues.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.